Ah, Gate. It really is a pretty bad anime, but I love it for all the right reasons. Or, well, wrong reasons depending on from where you're looking at it. Hello and welcome, you beautiful people. Before I get started, if you find yourself enjoying this video, please do consider subscribing to the channel as I'm trying to reach that magical 1000 this year. So then, Gate, thus the JSDF Fought there. It is a fantasy isekai, and those amongst you who have been following the channel for any amount of time will probably know that I'm generally not a big fan of fantasy isekai. I find the genre boring and samey and generally just not appealing to a point where it's even ruining other fantasy anime for me, and Gate is really standard fantasy isekai. It has over-sexy harem girls, adventures, fighting dragons and all that good stuff. Hell, the show even has an overpowered protagonist, as is only good and proper. But what sets Gate aside from most other isekai is why the protagonist and his allies are so overpowered. Since it's not magical bullshit or typical isekai, well, they just are OP, deal with it. No, it's power projected via bringing fucking tanks and fighter jets into a fantasy setting. We have attack helicopters mowing down bandits and F4 isekai phantoms and Type 75 SPGs, turning dragons into minced meat, and top of it all, it brought us the greatest verbal depiction of an anti-tank rocket launcher ever. And like with my dislike of isekai, if you aren't new here, you'll probably know that I tend to like militaria, and combining it with anime is right up my alley. I mean, I have previously talked about bidding our modern weapons against the rumbling, as well as the very soldier-like depictions of soldiers in the best isekai you never saw. And so, bring on a really mediocre anime and throw in some cool depictions of military hardware and I'm sold. For I too am a simple fan. I might try to be really critical and objective when it comes to reviews, but I still cannot resist things that I like, and sometimes that's okay. If you take nothing else away from this video, take this. It's okay to like what you like, even if it's objectively terrible. But what is Gate actually about? Surely it isn't just modern military slaughtering fantasy knights in their thousands. Well, it kind of is just that, but there's a little more to it at least. The show does bring on a lot of the more minute things that go into conducting a military operation on foreign soil, further emphasizing the army in question being the JSDF, who generally don't operate outside of Japanese foreign territory, and are by design a defensive force, with the highest priority being protection rather than destruction. It's not like they just roll over everyone in the fantasy world and exploit all the natural resources. Instead, the Green Men, as they're dubbed by the locals, opt to build an impregnable fortress around their interdimensional gate and pursue diplomatic solutions, but they aren't beyond striking out either when called for. I mean, dusty politicians sitting in a room talking about numbers and stuff wouldn't have been a very fun anime, unlike, you know. But the political side does play a part. We see the pain of a commander wanting to act but not having permission to save his men, or a leader on the field wanting to participate in a defense to protect people, weighing the option: do what's right or follow your orders and just watch people die in order to avoid a potentially bigger conflict. And I really like this side of showing the unseen part of what happens behind the blazing guns and screaming missiles. But there is one major aspect of military life that has been omitted and thus must be mentioned. You see, in the army, the vast majority of your time is spent doing one thing and one thing only. Okay, maybe two if you count waiting, but the one thing that any soldier who is not an officer does most is clean. And there's not a single barracks cleaning scene, 0 out of 10, immersion ruined. But for real, I was generally really surprised by how far into the background of the military-industrial complex the show takes you, showing a lot of the real issues armies face in and outside of the battlefield, such as logistics, rules of engagement. I mean, we even get the criticism of a clueless reporter complaining about laziness whilst not actually knowing what he's looking at. However, it's still a fantasy isekai that, aside from entertaining, also aims to present the JSDF in as good a light as possible, and ends up embellishing things to make them look far more appealing. Honestly, Gate is so obviously recruitment material for the JSDF, it's not even funny. Since they do use anime to attract young people even in their recruitment posters, not to mention the whole Kisarazu sisters thing, and as such, a full-blown animated series was the logical next step, and why not? What better way to lie to the impressionate youth than to show them a fantasy that they too could travel to another world and meet a busty bunny girl, in order to get them to join the army. Even the main character is designed to appeal to the teens. He's a shut-in otaku who only works to fund his anime hobbies, and still manages to get all the girls just by being an officer. But I'm not opposed to this approach either, I just think it's kind of amusing how on the nose it is. They even had a Japanese Spec Ops team efficiently defeat special forces of various other nations at the same time, which, yeah. I'm not saying they aren't good, but that good? Probably not. But at least we got an entertaining anime out of it, even if it isn't all that great as a whole. Gate, and so the JSDF Fought there, is a mediocre at best show that basically just combines your typical fantasy isekai tropes and a surprisingly accurate depiction of a modern military and how it functions into one kind of a messy whole that still somehow manages to work. But only if you're into the army stuff. I doubt that a fan of the usual isekai approach would care for magic being overshadowed by guns all that much, no matter how amusing it might be that the fantasy people refer to the Panzerfaust 3 as a giant iron penis. At least the story of Gate makes sense as much as any anime, and the show looks as good as you might have come to expect from an average isekai. Not great, not terrible. A solid 6 out of 10, but still a must-watch for any anime fan that likes Militaria and is looking for a brainless watch that isn't going to rock your world, but it won't really disappoint either. And lastly, before I go, leave your thoughts in the comments below. Do you agree or disagree with my verdict? Is Gate the show that is right up your alley, like it's mine, or could you not care less? If you like this, like it, dislike if you didn't, subscribe for more anime goodness and to help me reach that magical 1k. Check the links in the description if you want to engage with me outside of YouTube, and have a look at some of my other content if you are so inclined. Thank you for watching. With this, I have been Cheese, and I hope to see you next time. Ta-ta for now.